What's up, Bears fans? We're going to break down the entire Bears roster coming up here in just a second. But if you want more Bears news, rumors, segments like this one, just subscribe and turn on those notifications and select Noties to all. What does that do? Every single time we publish a video, when you're on your phone or tablet, you're going to get notified. Boom! There's the video. It's out, and you can be the first person to comment on our show. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and coming up here on Bears Now, a roster breakdown. You're watching Bears Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Harrison Graham. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to go through the entire roster by position group, 10 position groups if you factor in special teams unit as well, and I'm going to determine if it's better or worse or same, at least similar in terms of, just overall roster on paper to last season, and we'll see at the end of the show if the roster is better or worse. Maybe we'll be surprised. We'll go through it position by position here. All right, we'll start on offense. Let's start with the obvious, quarterbacks. Are the Bears quarterbacks better or worse this year? I said better. Now, Andy Dalton and Nick Foles are probably better backups than Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman, but at the end of the day at quarterback, it's about starting production. And I think Justin Fields, with a full offseason as the starter, plus the new coaching staff, is going to equal improvement. The Bears' quarterback numbers last year were just disastrous. There's just no way around it. I think Justin Fields will improve. I think he will play better. Trevor Siemian's a quality backup. Maybe he's not an Andy Dalton or Nick Foles, but I don't think he's super far off from those guys. Nathan Peterman, he's, for a QB3, he's a good locker room guy, classroom guy to have. I'm not going to put that much weight into that. Justin Fields will be much more productive as a starter than what the Bears had combined last year. That means it'll be better. I'm projecting a bit, but I just think that'll be the case with this new scheme. 25 total touchdowns for Fields this year. Type O for over, type U for under. That's the bar I'm setting it at. Total touchdowns, not, passing only, or certainly not rushing only. You're not going to rush for 25 touchdowns, but total. 20 passing, 5 rushing. Is that insane to think if he plays all 17? I don't think so. Type O for over, type U for under under 25 TDs for Fields this year. Let's go to running backs. I'll also say better. So 2 for 2. We'll highlight the ones green that I think will be better this year. Now, this is more of a marginally better because the running backs were actually pretty solid last year, but you look at what you have, right? David Montgomery, who missed time last year, assuming he stays healthy, that's better for you. Khalil Herbert, another year older, showed good things last year. You would project that he would be better this year. Treston Ebner, I think he's a solid addition. I think he can be more dynamic than Damian Williams was last year, and he'll have special teams value. Darrington Evans, we'll see if he makes the team, but he's got some scat back potential like a very poor man's Tariq Cohen type. Kerry Blasingame, too. I think the fullback addition weighs in here in this wide zone running scheme. I think he'll have an impact. Monty's going to be healthier. That is a good thing. That helps you be better at the running back spot to get you more production. And you've got good depth, like I mentioned. I think Herbert's a good backup. I think Ebner is a creative runner who can also catch the football. I think this room will be better. I don't think it'll be leaps and bounds better, but I think this running back unit was already pretty decent, and I think it's going to be a little better this year. Wide receivers. I have to be objective here. Worse on paper, and that's what we're mostly doing with some projecting. I got to go worse. I know Allen Robinson wasn't good last year, but you still had Allen Robinson. He drew some attention at least. You don't have that this year. On paper, this unit is worse. Now, that doesn't mean it'll play out that way. I think Darnell Mooney has a chance to break out and have a big-time season. Byron Pringle has a chance to give you 700-800 yards. I think that's possible. Velus Jones is the wild card. If he gives you big-time production as a rookie, then this unit probably plays out to be better. But here in the middle or late parts of May, I have to be objective, and on paper, this unit's worse. That's the simple fact. I will say this, though. Ryan Poles has created a lot of competition at this position with guys like Equinemius St. Brown, Dante Pettis, Tajay Sharp. Daz Newsom's a guy who I think is going to have to prove himself. So maybe on paper it doesn't look great, but if just a couple of these guys show some value, show some worth, then maybe it's a decent unit and you don't need it to be an incredible group at wide receiver. That could end up being the case as well. Now, how concerned are you about the wide receiver group? Scale from 1 to 10. 1 being you're not concerned. You think this is going to be a pretty good group. 10 being very concerned this unit is garbage. I'm at like a 6. I'm not overly concerned. Would I like another vet? Probably, like Will Fuller or Julio. That, I think that would help. But we'll see if that happens. But I think this group has a chance. I really do. I'm not as down on it as everybody else. That being said, I'm at least a little bit concerned. I want to know how you guys feel down in the comments. Tight ends. I think it's a better group. I really do. Jimmy Graham had nothing left last year, and the Bears were playing him real snaps. You may not know much about Ryan Griffin and James O'Shaughnessy. At this point in their careers, they're better than Jimmy Graham. They're better blockers. Jimmy Graham can't block me, much less real NFL football players. And Griffin and O'Shaughnessy, maybe they're not quite as dynamic as Graham. Not that Graham was dynamic last year, but they're good safety valve guys underneath, route runners. They'll catch the football. They're solid. And I believe Cole Kmet's going to improve. He more than doubled his production from his rookie to second season. So that, I don't think he's going to double to 1,200 yards, but if he gets 100, 200 more yards, some touchdowns compared to 0 last year, that's better than what you had last year. Plus, the depth is better. It just is. Jesse James is good in the preseason. He did nothing in the regular season. He had one cool touchdown. That was it. I think O'Shaughnessy, I think Griffin will be good depth pieces. And I think Kmet's going to improve. He's a top 15, maybe even a top 10 tight end here in 2022. Offensive line. My first neutral one. And same, it means kind of in the same realm. Like, not exact. Obviously, it's not the same starting unit from what you had. But you look at what you currently have compared to last year. Okay, left tackle. Jason Peters to Larry Borum. On paper, you probably got worse there. Cody Whitehair compared to Cody Whitehair this year. Whitehair can't play worse than he did last year. So I'm going to say that's a slight improvement because he's shown in the past he can be a good player. Lucas Patrick compared to Sam Mustipher. Better. That's a big upgrade at center. Right guard, you got worse because you lost James Daniels, who Ryan Poles may not have been high on, but he's better than anyone you currently have, at least on paper. Right tackle, Tevin Jenkins compared to Larry Borum / Jermaine Ifedi. I think there's potential to at least be slightly better there at right tackle. So I think you add all that up. I think it's similar. I think the scheme will help this group play better than last year, but in terms of overall talent, I think you're at a similar level where there's some talent. I think last year it didn't reach its full potential. You're hoping guys like Jenkins and Borum reach their potential, guys like Whitehair bounce back. Schematic change should help. I think Patrick at center is going to make a big difference because when you have poor center play, it kind of just sets the tone for all of it. And Sam Mustipher just wasn't good. I mean, good backup, but not a good starter. Make sure you guys follow us here on Rumble. We're less than 300 followers away from the 1,000 mark here on Rumble. Rumble.com/Bears now. Hit that follow button. Help us out as we continue to grow on this channel. Okay, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line. On paper, it's worse, and I'm lumping in Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, whereas last year, technically, they would have been at linebacker, but 4-3 scheme, their defensive line. Look, you don't have Mack anymore, so that's a loss, even though he missed 10 of 17 games last year. Robert Quinn, I just don't think he's going to have 18.5 sacks this year. I'm not going to say that's a huge decline, but you got to figure you're not going to get that level of production. You lost the Larry Ogunjobi signing. That hurts as well. Defensive Akeem Hicks currently isn't on the roster. It's worse. We got to be honest, right? Now, that doesn't mean it can't be productive. That doesn't mean Trevis Gibson can't take another step. That doesn't mean Al-Quadin Muhammad isn't going to help. You've got some pieces there, but you traded Khalil Mack. You don't have Akeem Hicks, and you missed out on Larry Ogunjobi, a player that you felt like was going to be a centerpiece on this defensive line. So where we sit right now, it's a worse unit. Let's go to linebackers. I think similar. It's kind of what you had last year, right? You've got one of the best in the NFL in Roquan Smith, and it's kind of, okay. Nick Morrow, I think he could be better than Alec Ogletree and Danny Trevathan, so that's a plus, but, the depth is questionable in my opinion. Matt Adams is a decent depth guy, but if he's your Sam, if he's your third backer, I don't think that's ideal. I like Jack Sanborn. I think he can be a decent player, but he's an undrafted free agent for a reason. So it's kind of like, okay, you got Roquan still, but question marks after that. That's why I'd be open to an Anthony Hitchens still or someone like that if you want to bring in another vet. I think that could happen still. We'll see what happens. So my take is it's similar to last year. Roquan will kind of cover up some deficiencies at that position. Cornerbacks, I think better. Maybe most improved unit potentially. I mean, you're hoping quarterback is, obviously, but CB could be the most improved. Shout out Ryan Pace for cutting Kyle Fuller last year, which actually proved out to not be the wrong decision, but he did nothing to replace him. Oh, Kendall Vilder, you'll just start for us. Yeah, that worked out well. But assuming Jalen Johnson gets his head on straight and he's ready to rock and roll and takes another step, Kyler Gordon, who they continue to rave about, I think you're going to feel good about him there. If he can deliver, that's good. I think Tavon Young, if healthy, is a good nickel, and you got some depth. You know, I'm not the biggest Kendall Vilder guy, but as a backup, sure. Thomas Graham is a backup, sure. Duke Shelley has played in this league. I think this unit should be maybe the most improved on the roster. I think it's very possible. If Tavon Young, who's had a deep injury history but played all 17 last year, stays healthy, this should be a solid unit. It should be a strong one. I think it's very possible this is one of the best units, if not the best, on the roster. What is the best position group on the roster? What do you guys think? Obviously, I feel like cornerback could be one of the Bears' best. Now, projecting a bit, rookie and Kyler Gordon. But if he lives up to the billing, then your secondary should be really nice. So let's go to safety now. The other spot in the secondary, also better. Pretty simple reason why. You draft Jaquan Brisker, who I think is going to be a plug-and-play starter at strong safety. You brought back DHC, who's a good backup. Dane Cruikshank, same deal. He's going to be a good depth piece, good special teamer. We'll see if Elijah Hicks, the 7th-rounder, makes the roster. I also think Eddie Jackson will play better this year because Brisker is a true box safety, so Eddie Jackson can get back to what he likes, play that deep coverage, and not have to worry as much about playing in the box. Brisker will be better than Gibson because he fits the mold of a strong safety. Tashawn Gibson, who did some good things at times, he's a free safety. They asked him to be a strong, and, you kind of had two free safeties who, kind of were out of position at times in the last couple of years in Eddie Jackson and Gibson. Jackson, be the cover guy. Brisker can cover some, but he's also going to lay the wood. I mean, he's going to get in the box and he's going to light people up. That's not Tashawn Gibson. That's not his game. They asked him to be someone he wasn't. Brisker is that guy, though, and I think he will be for this team. Special teams, same, similar. Cairo Santos, top 10 kicker in the league the last 2 years. 2 years ago, he was top 3 last year. Dipped a bit, but he was still really good. Trenton Gill replaces Pat O'Donnell, so, we all love Pat O'Donnell, but the reality is I think he was 16th in net punting average, so league average. Patrick Scales, Antonio Ortiz, Scales the presumed starter, but Ortiz also at camp as well. If Trenton Gill's league average, which is what Pat O'Donnell was, then it's going to be a similar unit this year. Now, we should include the return aspect of this, punt return, kick return, all that stuff. You got a lot of options there. Bayless Jones, if Daz Newsome makes the team, Khalil Herbert, you've got a lot of guys. So I think the return game could actually be pretty interesting for this football team. But in terms of the 3 main specialists, don't care about long snapper. Just snap the freaking ball right. And then kicker and punter, I think kicker will be good again. I think the punter, just be league average, and you'll be in good shape. All right, so you look at it all at once. Because there's been this narrative that this Bears roster is a disaster. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's an awesome roster, but maybe I'm reading through the tea leaves a little bit, maybe a little slanted look at this. Maybe I'm being a little biased, but I don't think I am. Maybe I'm projecting with Fields a little bit, but I see 5 betters, I see 2 worses, and I see 3 sames or similar. Obviously, the offensive line is a big question mark. But I don't think they'll be necessarily worse than last year. So you add it all up, based on this, the roster is better than last year, which I kind of found surprising as I went through it. What do you guys think? Is the Bears roster overall, not one position, 2, the whole thing, is it better or is it worse? And you can factor in the coaching a little bit. Now, a lot of this is on paper, just pure talent. And I think overall it's probably similar. Because think about it, too. Khalil Mack, you're like, how could it be better you trade Khalil Mack? Khalil Mack played 7 games last year. I mean, it's not like he had a huge impact. B for better, W for worse. Overall roster, will it be better? I think the secondary will be much better, which kind of evens things out. Get your votes in, B for better, W for worse. Be sure to follow us here on Rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Rumble.com/BearsNow. We're trying to grow on this platform. Help us out and follow us today.